Today we're going to disassemble and reassemble the Beeman P17 and show you how to access and replace all the O-rings. First, it's a good idea to have on safety goggles. There are some springs inside that can go flying. There's 4 total O-rings, 2 that are easy to get to and 2 that are hard to get to. So the easy ones, first of all, is this Breech O-ring. So that's a number 9. I'm going to put all the O-ring sizes in the description and at the start of the video. The next one's a little bit harder, then we'll go to the ones that are more difficult. There's an O-ring on this piston, so to access that O-ring we need to remove the piston. So we'll need a number 2 Allen wrench. And we're going to loosen up this set screw. And then once that's a little loose, we can punch out this pin. I have a magnetic tray for keeping parts. And now we can pull out the piston. Okay. So that's the second O-ring. O-rings are easiest to remove with an O-ring removal tool. This one likes to wear on little air intake hole in there, and you can also sand that down to make it smoother. All right, let's access those harder to get to O-rings. First thing we're going to want to do is remove the right grip. It has to be the right grip. We're going to use a 2.5mm Allen wrench. Once you get the screw out, we need to pop the grip off, so a screwdriver works good for that, so just slowly open up the grip. Oh, now here's one thing that happened. There should be a pin right there, and the pin came out with the grip. So we want to, if you have an extra pin, not sure where it goes right there in the trigger. This is going to be the shortest pin, this is the longest one, and this is the medium size. So the first thing we want to do after we take the grip off is we want to release the springs. This spring is usually in the right grip, so this one comes out automatically. So now I want to undo the trigger spring and this torsion spring here that's on the hammer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this spring first. I usually put my finger right here now because one time I didn't have it there and the spring went flying. You know what? So I'm going to just use some needle-nose pliers. Okay, so we take that one out. And now the trigger spring. Okay, and just remember the direction that goes. The hook goes under the bottom and the long part of the spring goes that way. Now I want to remove these 2 pins. We want to take the, this is the drop sear right here. So I want to take that out first. Sometimes the pins will just pull right out easily. And this one seems to be in a little tight, so I might need to use some leverage with my screwdriver. Okay, we got that one out. Now the sear will pull out like that. And we can leave this together to make it easier to reassemble the gun later. And now we can take out, this is the hammer. We can take out that. Now there's really 3 pieces in this assembly. So we can leave this together to make it easier to reassemble later. But this connects the trigger to the sear. And there's also a spacer bar inside. So I'm just going to leave this together to make it easier to put back together later. Yeah, my trigger just came out, so we'll leave that together, put that right there. Okay, so we're going to need to punch this out so we can remove the compression tube. And the first thing we need to do is loosen this set screw that's holding it in with our 2mm Allen wrench. Okay, so now I have a 1/8 inch punch, a couple pieces of wood, so I'm going to set the P17 like this so the pin has someplace to go. And we'll just hammer it right out. Alright, so once that pin's all the way out, this whole compression tube just lifts right out. Hey, we're almost there. We're getting close. Okay, so the final 2 O-rings are on the valve, which is inside there. So to get to the valve, still a little more work to do. We're getting close. We have to take out these 3 fingers. So there's another punch right there. We'll punch that out, and then we'll remove these 3 fingers, and then we'll unscrew this. The valve will come out, and we can get to those final 2 O-rings. All right, now we can get our gun out of the way. I put the pin right there. And now to get that pin out there, you might need to tap it with a hammer, but I'm gonna use my 2mm Allen wrench. Taking it out before it's starting to get a little looser, and I'm gonna push it out. That's one of the hardest parts, putting this back together, having that lined up perfectly so that goes back in. So now we can take out our fingers. And the center one's a little bit different, so you need to make sure that that one goes back in the center. So now we're ready for our 13mm wrench. Okay, so now we have our valve where the final 2 O-rings reside. There's one on the valve tip right here. So that's easy to take off with our O-ring removal tool and replace. And that one's going to be your number 6 O-ring. This one here is your number 8. That's a little harder to get to. So now we have to get to that O-ring, we need to take this nut off. And that nut's going to be a 7mm size. I'm not going to do that right now, because this end where the nut attaches, it's slightly expanded to prevent the nut from loosening, and if I do that, it's going to take that away. So if you do take this nut off, you want to add blue Loctite when you're done. Blue Loctite's still going to be removable, but it'll stop that nut from loosening up. The way to get that off is put this end in a padded vise, remove that O-ring first, take that off, then this piece will slip off, and then you'll have easy access to replacing that O-ring. Okay, this valve wasn't leaking, but the most likely O-ring to fail is this one on the tip, because the valve's always opening and closing. That's taking some abuse. So just for preventative, I'm going to go ahead and replace this O-ring. So I'm going to take my O-ring pick. Take that O-ring, put that one aside. And here I have my new number 6 O-ring. I'm going to put my O-ring grease on there. I like using Super Lube. Okay, get the O-ring on there. I like greasing it up with Super Lube. Now we're ready to reassemble everything. So it can't hurt while we have this apart. Maybe put some rubbing alcohol on this Q-tip. Clean that off in there. And it also can't hurt to put a little Teflon tape on those threads. Okay, now the fun part, getting these fingers back in. Okay, make sure that one with the notch goes in the center. And one thing that can help getting the holes lined up is putting a Allen wrench in there. Same down here, these small ones. These have to be perfectly lined up to get that punch back in. It's a real pain in the butt. Alright, it looks lined up pretty good, so hopefully we can get our pin back in there. Ah, there it goes. How about that? Oh, got it. It's nice when you make it past that last one. Alright, we got that pin in all the way. Now we're almost home free. Alright. Okay, so now we need to hammer this pin back in. Okay, then don't forget to tighten that. Our 2mm Allen wrench. Something I forgot to show while I had the tube out. The gun has an automatic safety, so whenever you cock the gun, the safety automatically sets. And it's harder to see with the tube here, but if you punch this pin out here, you can then, a spring and a piece for the automatic safety will come out, but you can punch the pin back in and then you'll convert it to a manual safety. So not recommending that you do that, but if you wanted to do that, that's how it's done. Okay, so now I'm going to reinstall the piston. But first, there's an air intake hole on here. And sometimes there's a little burr, some roughness to it that can wear through your O-ring. So what I like to do is get some about 1000 grit sandpaper, cut a little square, put it on your finger, and just try and polish that area around that air intake hole. You can work that for a little while to get it smoother, and hopefully the O-ring will last longer for you. You hear about people using white lithium grease. Heard some people say that's not very good. It can harden and clog some of the holes in the gun. But I'm going to put some super lube on here. What else I like to do, I put in a drop of my Mac 1 secret sauce. I'll blow a little oil throughout the whole system. So let's go ahead and put our piston back in. Our trigger back. Okay. The first thing we're going to put back now is our hammer. It's nice to have the pin pushed in so it's about level with the other side or flush. And have your trigger link pointing up because we need to make sure it slides in and doesn't hit the trigger. So you're going to have the two legs go around the valve stem there. Sits in right there. Now once that sits in, you should be able to find the place for the pin to push in. So it's all lined up now. Now for our drop sear, the tip of the drop sear is going to go through there. And you got to make sure we get the pin lined up with the hole. Okay, I think we're good on that. Okay, looks like we have everything back together good. So put our trigger spring on. So once again, this part's going to go right there. And now we're going to use our needle nose pliers to pull the spring right over that post. Once it's over the post, we'll push it down the rest of the way. Next is the torsion spring that's going to go in our hammer. So this piece goes in like this. There we go. Okay, we're getting real close. So now we're going to take our needle nose pliers and put this spring back. Now this spring here is going to be in the right-handed grip. So we'll show you how that works here in a second. So now to get this put back together, I'm going to get all three of these pins started in the grip. Okay, so I got all three pins started. Now what I like to do is with my left thumb, this spring that's sticking out right now, I hold it almost all the way in that opening. Well, almost all the way, and then with my screwdriver, take it and push it right up in the right-hand grip. Okay, now we hope that the gun cocks and fires. There you go. Okay, notice I was a little bit out of frame showing how to get this spring back into the right grip. So let me just show that again because I know some people have a challenge with this part. I already had the grip barely started. There's a little bit of a gap there, so I'm going to hold this almost all the way in with my left thumb. And take my screwdriver and pop it right in. There we go. All right, well, I almost ended the video there, but what the heck? Let's keep on going. Look at a couple more things here. The P17 has a rail, so it's easy for mounting optics. I really like having a red dot sight. This sight on the back, though, it will tend to loosen up as you're cocking the gun. So one thing you do, we're going to take out this screw and have some Teflon tape, and I'll give it more resistance so it won't loosen up on you. So there's a nut underneath, so you got to be careful that might fall out. Just don't lose the nut. So don't lose the nut or the spring. Okay, let's take a closer look at the barrel. To remove the barrel, we're going to remove these two screws here. And this plate. Okay, so one thing about the barrel, at the end where the pellet exits is this little notch. So that's going to prevent the barrel from sliding any farther forward. Now with the barrel fully in, this end is going to be the end that seals against the breech O-ring. So when the barrel's fully inserted, if the tolerances aren't right, there's going to be a little gap here, then you're going to lose power. So if your gun has that situation, you can add a little shim here and it'll prevent the barrel from going farther forward and helping it to have a better seal at the back. So one way you can do that is with a piece of Teflon tape. So now we can try reinserting the barrel. Now if that's too much of a shim, this is going to hit when you're trying to close the gun. Or it's going to be really tight and you're going to have a hard time closing the hammer. Does that at all, just take that back off and don't do anything. Okay, for those of you that have stuck around this long, we're now going to look at improving the trigger and improving the accuracy. So let's talk about accuracy first. I recently got a couple of these new P17s on that Amazon sale, so not sure how many people saw that sale, but these guns were down to $7.50. But I noticed that as I push this pellet through, when it gets to the end of the barrel, it gets stuck, and you have to push harder to get it out. So there's a little hang up here at the end of the barrel, and that's going to hurt accuracy, so as this pellet's exiting the barrel, it's going to hit that little speed bump, and the accuracy is going to get thrown off. So we can try and re-crown this barrel. There's a lot of videos on YouTube how to do that. So I'm going to do that, but that hang-up seems a little bit deeper than it's going to be easy to get to by re-crowning. So I'm going to try something different here. All right, I just made this little sandpaper cone with 500 grit sandpaper on the tip of this pencil. And I'm going to try and just polish out this opening until that pellet will push through without hanging up. Oh, didn't take much. So now I switched to some 1000 grit just to try and polish it out a little more. Okay, so now we're going to re-crown this barrel. Some tricks I learned from some other YouTube videos. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this cleaning pellet and put it in the tip. That way no debris goes into the barrel. And then what we're going to use, we're going to use a drill with a number 8 brass screw. It has to be a brass screw. You want a screw that's soft, because we're going to use this to create the barrel crowning. You want it to be softer than the metal on the barrel, because what's going to grind away that opening is grinding compound. So we need that, a drill, and real easy. A couple minutes we'll have a nice crown. Okay, we've got a barrel set up in a vise with some padding. I'm going to take some of this valve grinding compound and put it on the tip of my screw and on the barrel. And now we're just going to you need to make sure to rotate the drill at the same time, real important. And don't put any extra pressure. Just allow the weight of the drill to slowly grind away the opening. We might do this for 2 or 3 minutes. All right, we'll finish cleaning this up. We'll put the gun back together and see how it shoots. But yeah, look at that crown. All right, let's put this back together and see how it shoots. Okay, wasn't shooting too bad. That was about from 20 feet. So, but let's move on to the trigger. So right now I have this set up how it looks when it's in the cock position. So the sear wants to fly up this way, but it can't because this trigger link's in the way. And the hammer wants to fly down this way, but it can't. So when we pull the trigger, and normally the spring is pulling down here, so we pull the trigger, click. So now the sear can fly out of the way, and the hammer wants to fly down this way. So the hammer is going to come down here, and it's going to open the valve and fire the shot. So what we're going to do to try and make the trigger a little bit nicer, we're going to polish the parts that are in there. So we don't want to overdo it. Got to be real careful. We're going to do some light sanding to polish those parts and see if we can shorten and smoothen out that second stage trigger. All right, let's take this piece apart. 4 pieces, the pin. Here's this trigger link, and there's also this wire that was in there, this wire separator. Now, the guns that I've disassembled so far show the wire being in like a number 9, but diagrams for the gun show it going in like the letter P. So I'm not sure if it matters which way you put it in, but I'm going to reassemble it the way it was. But if you have a problem with the gun cocking or something, that might be something worth trying, flipping that over. It's kind of in that position there, and when you pull the trigger, this drops out of the way. So what we're going to do, we're going to polish these edges a little bit. We're not going to overdo it, be careful, and we can put the gun back together, try it. We don't want to overdo it, because if you overdo it, you can't undo it. All right, I may do a little more polishing. That second stage, still a little longer than I want it to be. Okay, tinkered with it a little more. Now it's a nice short second stage. There's the first stage. Now just squeeze it a little bit more. Boom. Sweet trigger. All right, so I think that about covers everything I wanted to show you guys. So thanks for watching. Any questions, leave them in the comments. Bye.